Welcome to the Elusive Truth with Rich and Larry. Well, here we are, folks. Happy President's Day. I saw the best comment in the world. President's Day has been postponed until we get Donald Trump back in the office. Telling you, man, crazy, crazy stuff we live in these days. Well, here we are, middle of February, and Donald Trump has been ordered to pay the state of New York millions of dollars based on some crazy trial that took place the past couple months. So we're going to learn a little bit more about this because it's crazy. I don't know anything about real estate and how they evaluate properties and whatnot, but we're going to learn so we can really find out what's going on here. Because of this ruling, now we have, I guess, truckers are going to boycott New York City and the state of New York for at least 7 days to show their support for Donald Trump. And, of course, the left news is saying, never going to happen, don't worry about it, not a big deal. Like they say, only 10% get stopped. It's going to create a lot of headaches for a lot of New Yorkers. So, we're starting off with News Nation. Truckers threaten to boycott New York City over Trump's verdict. Good morning in America. Have a listen. News Nation.
Well, some of President Trump's supporters are pushing back against what they see as an unfair justice system, threatening a boycott that could have a major impact on the country's largest city. Some truck drivers say they're planning on refusing shipments to and from New York City in protest of that $355 million verdict against the former president in his business fraud trial. Dre Clark is live in Manhattan with the latest. Dre, what could this boycott do to prices, not just in New York, but for all of us across the country?
Well, certainly if truck drivers were to boycott New York City, the impact has the potential to be very damaging and very quickly. We're talking about supermarkets, big box stores, and other businesses that rely heavily on trucking. They would feel the pinch, and so would their customers. About 90% of communities here in New York City rely heavily on trucking to move their goods. This morning, we're on the Jersey side of the George Washington Bridge, and every day you can see hundreds, if not thousands, of trucks crossing the bridge from Jersey into the city. Meanwhile, one man is now telling truck drivers not to come to New York City after former President Trump was hit with that massive multi-million-dollar fine last week. Take a listen.
I've been on the radio talking to drivers for about the last hour 15 minutes. And I'm talking to at least 10 drivers going the other way. I'm heading down from South Wisconsin. And they're going to start refusing loads in New York City starting on Monday.
Yeah, the man calls himself Chicago Ray, and as of last night, his post on X, formerly Twitter, had garnered more than 6 million views and 60,000 likes. Former President Trump also caught wind of what Chicago Ray is doing and reposted Ray's video on his platform, Truth Social. But it's hard to ascertain exactly how many drivers are answering his call and what kind of impact it may have. It's not an organized effort, and the drivers expressing support for Chicago Ray, they're scattered all across the country. We did reach out to the Teamsters Union, the union representing many truck drivers, but did not get a response. We also contacted and tried to call at least the National Supermarket Association, which is based here in New York City, but did not get a response. Meanwhile, Chicago Ray says he and other truckers are irate over Judge Arthur Engoron's fining former President Trump more than $355 million for fraud. Ray, like the former president, believes it's a form of election interference. Meanwhile, we talked to one driver who says she's joining the movement to boycott New York City, and she says if things go as planned, the city could pay a big price.
It could shut New York City down. And, I don't want to hurt the people of New York. That's not what I'm trying to do. But my part in it, if New York just loses 10%, just 10% of the trucks that go in there, their prices are going to skyrocket on everything from milk to eggs to any type of goods that the consumer needs. And when that happens, it's going to cost everybody more money.
Yeah, but not every truck driver is getting behind Chicago Ray's efforts. Many drivers responded saying that they would not support the former president because he was accused and now he's been found liable for causing fraud. They say also the New York City market is just too big to ignore.
So just in the ending of that last report, you heard the reporter basically saying New York is too big, the market is too valuable, and these truckers aren't going to do anything. So we're going to switch to Route Rethinker. Every truck stop in New York City is a ghost town. Boycott began for Trump after the $355 million ruling. So let's hear this side of the story. Have a listen.
Take a look at this, New York, and all the truckers that are tuning in. We're diving straight into a story that's turning NYC upside down. Well, right now, truck stops that are near the Big Apple, New York, well, they're complete ghost towns. Yes, it's giving ghost town vibes since the crack of dawn. And what's the reason? It's all about the boycott that's sparked by Trump's $355 million verdict. Truckers are steering clear of New York for the next 7 days, all because of the recent ruling against Trump. A truck stop that's usually alive and kicking on a Sunday night was completely abandoned, a straight ghost town. Truckers and their companies are in agreement that there will be no deliveries to New York City this week. They're taking a stand saying New York City went too far, and they're not moving an inch until the situation where Trump ruling has been rectified. Take a look at this video.
You go, Cannon, New York. You won't see all the emptiness tonight in the truck stop. Trucker strike tomorrow, New York, good luck.
So there you see this video surfacing online that was captured early Monday morning around 4 a.m., showcasing a truck stop that serves as a gateway into New York, a place that's typically bustling before a Monday. But late last night, it was strikingly empty. Truckers and their employers have made a firm commitment not to deliver to New York this week, a decision sparked by the judge ruling against President Trump involving in a $355 million verdict. The message among the truckers is clear. New York City has crossed the line and they refuse to make deliveries until the charges are dropped. With truckers worldwide catching the wind of this development, the response has been swift, and with many choosing to refuse loads. As of today, Monday, the latest reports confirm that the truck stops near New York are deserted, signaling that for now, no one is headed into the city. Truckers from around the globe are getting the message, standing firm and refusing loads. It's Monday and truck stops near New York, they're totally vacant. So what does that mean for New York City? Well, opinions do vary. Some think that 7 days is not long enough to see a true impact. It should be as long as it has been for Bud Light. They're saying that a week won't make much of a dent, while others believe that in a city like New York, 7 days could have major impacts. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think that a 7-day strike or more could make an impact on New York City? The past 48 hours has been intense. Trump's situation is more than just news. It's the news. Yet, we've got nothing from the city's leaders. But with the talk growing louder, they need to step up soon, as the city is on the brink of something big. Day one has already got people talking, and the buzz online is impossible to ignore. Trump's support is off the charts. Despite everything, he's moving forward, even making waves at a SneakerCon where his new kicks sold out fast. They were $399 and they were sold out fast. These sneakers was called the Never Surrender High Top Sneaker, and they sold for $399. And that GoFundMe page that was rumored to be shut down, well, it's not. It's actually still up and running, pulling in over $450,000 that was created by Elena and Grant Cardone. So what are your thoughts? Truckers and their companies are drawing a clear line.
Tell you what, you fuck around and find out.
Putting New York City in a tough spot. This boycott, triggered by a hefty legal decision, is a powerful show of unity from truckers and their employers, making a strong statement against delivering to New York City until charges are dropped. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button. We're bringing you all the latest as this drama unfolds. New York, truckers, it's gearing up to be quite the showdown, and it's just the beginning. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.
All I can tell you is that a lot of people are talking about this. And this is just the fluff part. This has nothing to do with what actually took place, why is it so bad, and what's the ramifications for other developers in the state of New York. For that, we're going to go to Tim Pool. Truckers boycott New York City. Democrats panic as Trump fraud verdict backfires, causing businesses to flee New York. Well, have a listen. Tim Pool.
New York really stepped in it this time. Following the $350 million fraud ruling against Trump, truckers have announced that they will be boycotting loads delivered to the city. Now, I don't know exactly how big that could get. Maybe it's 10 truckers, maybe it's more. But considering the political leanings of many in the trucking profession, seems likely that this will have some kind of impact on New York City. We all remember the Freedom Convoy, the Freedom Truckers in Canada. The government was so shocked by what they were doing, they started freezing bank accounts and stealing money. And then, of course, there's the Colorado truckers boycott, where a man was sentenced to 110 years in prison after his brakes failed. A bunch of people who drive trucks said we're not going in that state. And then they were forced to reduce the sentence to 10 years. Now, I do want to talk about that case because it's pretty wild. But what we see here is that truckers are somewhat of an organized group. They lean pretty right, not completely. This may have a tremendous impact. But for those that aren't following exactly why this is happening, this has to do with Donald Trump's fraud ruling. And I'll give you the gist of that so you can understand. Donald Trump was accused of fraud by New York. They argued that he artificially inflated the value of his assets in order to secure better loans, more money. Yes, that's literally what all people do all the time, everywhere. It's not a crime. It's not fraud. It is normal. Seriously. Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary, I looked it up. I guess his net worth is the tune of $500 million. He's not quite a billionaire, but he's a very wealthy guy, says this is insane. You're going to have to prosecute. You're going to have to go after every single real estate developer everywhere. So it's not just that truckers are boycotting, but Kathy Hochul of New York is begging developers like, please, everything's fine. You have nothing to worry about. Why? Because anyone who works in real estate is now going, holy crap, we are all guilty of fraud, and they are going to strip and steal our assets. Good luck, New York. Now, of course, if you're a regime ally or puppet, you probably have nothing to worry about, but this is the way the country is shifting. That is, if you're a regular old real estate developer, you're going to avoid New York. But if you're a Nazi, you're going to want to build in New York. And why do I say Nazi? Well, first, let's start with the gist of the claims against Donald Trump. Not only did they try to criminalize, or they're calling it a civil fraud thing, a standard business practice, Trump was not even given an opportunity to defend himself. That's correct. The judge in the case banged the gavel and said, summary judgment. I don't need to see anything. There does not need to be a trial. Trump is guilty. Now, the trial we are going to have is to determine whether or not he fraudulently altered documents and what's the damages. In this trial, they weren't allowed to actually claim Trump didn't do this. No, it was already determined by the court. You committed fraud. So this is shocking and wild. But here's why I say Nazi. What I read was it wasn't socialist. It wasn't a command economy like the communists, but it may as well have been. There was private industry. You were able to build what you wanted and trade how you saw fit, but it had to be to the benefit of the regime. Well, interesting. Get it? If you are someone who is critical of the Nazi party, oh, you're in trouble. But if you supported the regime, well, then you were fine. They would come to a steel factory and say, you're not producing steel for the war effort? Well, we can't have that. And what would happen is people would stop trading with you. They'd say, look, I don't want any trouble. I don't want people coming and smashing up my businesses. I don't want to get into a fight with the government. I don't want the regulation. I'm not going to do business with someone who's persona non grata. So it was through social enforcement, ideological enforcement, everybody fell in line. And that's exactly what we see with cancel culture. People terrified to speak out against what they see as wrong because they're scared. Far leftists will smash their windows out, burn their buildings to the ground, destroy their dreams. And this is what we're seeing now in New York. Real estate developers going to get wise real quick. But this doesn't mean real estate will stop being developed. It means that allies of the Democratic Party who donate to the Democratic Party are going to be with smiles on their faces, developing, building, using the exact same techniques Donald Trump used. You want to know how you know the whole fraud trial was a fraud itself. They argued that Mar-a-Lago is worth something like $20 million. Okay, Mar-a-Lago is beachfront to beachfront property, something like 20 some odd acres. Neighboring buildings go for $20 to $40 million. How could Mar-a-Lago be worth less, considering it's not just a property, but it's a business? At minimum, based on construction costs, dry real estate value. Imagine it was a flat parking lot. What it'd be worth? You're looking at $500 million, maybe $300. But in reality, I think it's fair to say it's a $1 billion entity, as Trump did. 20 million? Here's the game plan. What they're going to do, and I predicted this, and here we go. They are going to argue that Trump's buildings are not actually worth 500 million. They're worth 30 million, 20 million, like Mar-a-Lago. And they're going to do this in New York. They're going to say Donald Trump owes New York State $364 million. And when Trump doesn't pay, they're going to, first of all, they're not going to let him sell the buildings. They've already put bans on him serving as an officer. They've already forced his children to pay, and they're restricting his ability to do business. Considering this, what's likely going to happen is, let's say Trump's got a $500 million building. And he says, okay, I'll pay the fine by selling this building. Nope, you can't do it. We have suspended you. And who in their right mind is going to do a deal with Trump? They're going to be like, dude, no way. The machine's going to come after me. So what'll happen then is Trump will, if he doesn't pay, have to hand over assets. The state will seize the property. And what they're going to do is, the building's actually worth 500 million, by the way, as a business and as real estate. But they're going to say, no, it's worth 20. So that 350 million you owe us, we're seizing your building. And now you owe us 330 million. Even though Trump's net worth is to the tune of billions based on these buildings, I don't know that the buildings in New York are actually 500 million. Maybe it's 100 million or whatever. It could be 500 million. I think that's actually fair. But Trump doesn't own literally all of it, my understanding is. So it's not towards his complete net worth. But they'll seize it. And then they'll sell it off to a political ally. Now, what we're seeing with truckers, I think, will be very interesting because real estate developers are going to say, no way, we're out. Truckers are going to stop delivering. And I think it's interesting. But I do want to point out, as of this morning, truckers is trending on X to the tune of 300,000 posts. Everybody is hearing this message. It started with one guy who said, I'm on the radio all day, and all the truckers I hear are saying, we are not going to accept loads that go to New York City. We don't care. Okay. But it's also fair to say, maybe it has an impact. Maybe it drives up costs. Probably will, but competition exists. There are certainly going to be truckers who are younger and say, dude, I don't care at all about Trump. Everybody denied these deliveries, these loads. And so now the company's doubled the rate. I'll take it. Maybe. Or maybe truckers just boycott the city and the state in other means, in other ways. When we have this story, actually, I don't know if I pulled up somewhere. Here we go. From cloudtrucks.com. What happened with the Colorado trucking boycott? In this instance, this is a wild story, by the way. This truck driver, in over his head, 23 years old, his brakes failed, smoke was coming out, he burned him out, crashed, killed 4 people. He shouldn't be in prison at all. Sorry, he shouldn't be in prison at all. They gave him 10 years in the end. But he was initially sentenced to 110 years in prison. And a bunch of truckers stopped at the border of the state of Colorado and would not enter the state because they were like, I don't want to go to prison. Like if my brakes fail. You read the details of the story, and there are some people who argue this kid is guilty or whatever. And I'm like, I think the reality is he didn't know what he was doing. For real. I watched this video of a guy skiing. And he's going like 50 miles an hour, just blasting downhill, and he won't stop and then slams into a bunch of people. And it's like, yeah, he didn't know how to stop. And so everyone's like, well, that's his fault. It is. But there's a difference between an accident and malicious attacks on people. And the point of prison is to protect us from violence. So we lock someone up. And also, there's some kind of retribution, punishment, rehabilitation, whether we get any of that. What is the purpose of locking someone up who was involved in an accident? It's simple. You lose your driver's license. That's how you prevent this from happening again. A guy who barrels down a slope and slams into people, you pull his pass and you ban him from coming back. He didn't intentionally do anything. You're not solving any problems. But the truck drivers just stopped. We're not going in the state. What happens? If you get a bunch of truckers outside of New York maybe the Lincoln Tunnel, the Holland Tunnel, wherever, and they just don't move. And they say, I am not going, and they jam up the tunnel. Oh, the cops can come in and be like, you got to move. And they'll be like, I ain't moving. You can tow it. Not my truck. What happens if truck drivers just stop? And then you get, I don't know, a truck gets stuck or something like this happens where they're like, I am not going to enter this city. I need to turn around. And then they don't deliver the loads. What happens if people just park on the side of the roads? And at the very least, if truckers do start boycotting New York, prices will go up for New Yorkers. I don't know that they care. There's a lot of wild stuff happening. I think this video from CNN is actually really important. And I want you to hear what Kevin O'Leary has to say. This is Kevin O'Leary talking about Donald Trump and what happened recently. Listen to this. It's 2 minutes long.
Well, let's leave out Trump for a minute and let's leave out politics and just talk about what happens in real estate development anywhere. So if you're a developer and you've got a building on a block anywhere in America and it's worth, let's say, $500 million and you want to build a building right beside it, you go to the bank and say, this building is worth $500 million. I'd like to borrow a construction finance loan against this asset, and I want you to tell me it's worth $500 million too. And the bank negotiates with you and says, well, no, we think it's worth $400 million. And you fight it out. You're always trying to show your assets in the brightest light with the sunshine you could possibly determine for them. You want them to be worth the very most, because you're only going to get a 40 or 50% loan to value, as it's called. Then you borrow that money. In the case of a $500 million asset, maybe you get $250 million, and you build a new building with a construction finance loan. And so that's what this case is all about. And by the way, forget about Trump. Every single real estate developer everywhere on earth does this. They always talk about their asset being worth a lot, and the bank says no. And that's just the way it is. So in this case, when I'm trying to figure out, and I'm not pro or con, or I don't care about the politics, who lost money? Nobody. The bank got paid back the construction finance loan, and a new building was built. And if you're going to sue this case and win, you got to sue every real estate developer everywhere. This is all they do. This is what they do all day long, every day. So I don't think this thing will ever survive appeal, regardless of what the fine is. This doesn't even make sense. Now, look, I know Trump's got a lot of problems in other indictments and everything else, but this, if you're a real estate developer, you're watching this, you're saying, what is this? This is ridiculous.
I'd like to just point out to Kevin O'Leary, perhaps when you look to all the other indictments, you realize they are the exact same. I'd like to introduce you all who are not familiar to the Gell-Mann amnesia effect. This is a reference to this very scenario. You read the news in the newspaper, and let's say you're a real estate developer or a business mogul like Kevin O'Leary. I don't know if I think he's a real estate developer too, or he's an investor. I don't know what he does. And he reads a story and it says, Trump defrauded, here's how. You go, wait, what? That's not true. What is this garbage? These people are making stuff up. This makes no sense. You then turn the page and it says war in Syria. And you go, wow, I didn't know that. As if you have amnesia and forgot that the story you just read, for which you are the expert, was wrong. And that's the reality of news media. How could a journalist possibly understand the esoteric nature of any subculture or industry? I remember I went to the X Games and a friend of mine did a trick called a backside lip slide. Okay, that's what it's called. Backside is a reference to the direction you spin, and a lip slide is a trick. The newspaper wrote she did a backslide, and we all laughed. Now, to your average person who reads that, they are going to read about a woman who did a backslide. That's not a thing. Not a trick. Like maybe as a joke or whatever, but not a trick. So when I read the newspaper, I see that and I laugh. I know it's wrong. But I've long known that the media was full of it. To the average person, they don't. My point is this. For Kevin O'Leary to see this and go, this is nonsense. I know he's got other indictments, though. Bro, they're all nonsense. Are you kidding? 30 years ago at the Bergdorf, Trump walked into a building where he owned the hotel across the street, asked a woman to go into a dressing room that was for some reason unlocked when they're supposed to be locked. No one noticed. No one was there. She can't remember what year it happened. The dress she was allegedly wearing didn't even exist at the time. I still have the dress, she said. And then people looked up like that dress didn't exist. It wasn't made then. And then Trump apparently engaged in untoward activities to which the court ruled no, he didn't, but still held him liable anyway. Remarkable, isn't it? Maybe then you can look at it and say, all of this seems to make no sense. On top of that, you have now with Fani Willis. Apparently, she's accused of funneling money from the government to her boyfriend to pay for lavish vacations. Don't worry, though. She claims she paid it all back in cash she had lying around. That's right. Up to $9,000 in cash just lying around. Okay. I mean, maybe, I guess, but I don't believe it. And here we are today. Kathy Hochul tells businesses not to fear about Trump verdict. Nothing to worry about. Are you nuts? If you are a business, I can only tell you, you have to be insane to operate in New York. I mean, look, it was bad enough what we saw in 2020 with the COVID lockdowns, selective enforcement of shutting down businesses, unconstitutional orders, shutting down churches. Maybe it's what they want. Or maybe it's just dominoes falling over. I don't know. Perhaps it is just dominoes falling over one at a time. As the ideological capture happens, the regime expands their power. There is no resistance. And this is the direction things go. Now, certainly you can argue that there are people who want something like this to happen. And I say, yes, perhaps. But I don't know for sure. What I mean is you get hyperpolarization. You get bifurcation of media with decentralized information and the creation of factions. Certain factions are more likely to win than others. Democrats run on demonizing Republicans in order to win power. Once this starts, and it didn't start with Trump, it started before Trump, it expands precipitously as more and more people are indoctrinated to one side or the other. Eventually, one regime has full control, like in New York or California. It's not so much that they intentionally expand their power. What I mean is they're not sitting there going like, how can we become more powerful? They're thinking, we got to get this guy because it'll help us win. So they do. You had Letitia James campaigned on I'll go after Trump because it's a popular ideological position. It works for her. She then goes after Trump. This results in more conservative-leaning individuals and Trump supporters to flee the city and the state. They do, which solidifies the ease at which these psychopathic politicians take those votes. Eventually, you get one-party rule.
There is a lot to unpack with what Tim Pool had to say on many different levels, starting with truckers and what actually Donald Trump did with his businesses and how real estate, managing loans and that type of thing, how that actually works. Crazy. And it really sounds like he didn't do anything. He does what every other developer has done. But again, the media, the Democratic Party, the way that they pull their narrative. You know, you would think Trump owes millions and he stole money and this and that. And it comes down to it's unbelievable. It's crazy. And the more you learn about this, the more it makes you think, what else is the government doing? What else are we being lied about? I mean, apparently this is way bigger than I ever thought it was going to be. So if you want more information, I highly recommend Tim Pool. Go to YouTube. He has many different podcasts and videos. At least you'll find a different story. You'll find another avenue or a different side of something that we've been shoved down our throats day in, day out. I mean, the media it really is. It's opinionated and it's coming from one source. And they really are out to get Donald Trump and the American citizens. And if you want to take it even further with the WEF, the world. They have plans for world domination. Crazy. It sounds like a bad spy movie. So, with that, we're going to go to Firebrand Media. Engoron's ruling is dead on arrival for appeal. So have a listen. He'll explain a little bit more. At least another person giving you what actually is going on. Have a listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Firebrand Media. I'm your host, George. Engoron. Thrift store Bernie will lose his case on appeal. If you guys don't know by now, the crazy lunatic judge out of New York, who made up his mind before the trial even started, Well, before that, he denied a jury trial because he wanted to be the guy to make the decision. He went with a bench trial. New York judge Arthur Engoron ruled that Donald Trump defrauded banks by inflating his worth to acquire loans. He has ordered Trump to pay the state of New York $364 million. Somewhere it says $350 million. I just added it up. It's $364 million if you add Trump's money and then the money his kids have to pay and then the money his business has to pay. Not only that, he also stopped Trump from doing business in New York for 3 years. The crazy thing is the banks that Trump supposedly defrauded testified in support of Trump. You see, by law, when you do go to a bank to get a loan, not you and I, because when we go get loans, it's like, yo, give me $2,000. Let me buy this nice little Be Hizzy shirt or something like one of those things. Well, when Trump goes to get loans, he's looking for $1 billion, right? So he's going to walk in. The bank's going to be like, Mr. Trump, how much money you want today? 1 billion, 1 billion. And then they sit down. See, they're not sitting down with some bank teller. No, they're sitting down with the owners of the bank, the board of the bank. And Trump's going to explain what he's doing with the 1 billion. And they're like, Mr. Trump, what do you have as collateral? You know, if you were unable to pay this loan, how are we guaranteed that we can still rescue our money here? And then Trump's going to be like, Mar-a-Lago is worth $350 million, right? Trump Tower, you know, that kind of thing. And then the bank's going to be like, okay, all right. And then they're going to send their own estimators. What do you call those guys? Value appraisers. Those guys are going to go to Mar-a-Lago and look through the books and see, oh, is it worth $350 million, as Trump said? And then they're going to determine, okay, we agree with Trump's valuation or we disagree slightly, but we're going to give him the loan because it's just a slight difference in what we think it is. We think it's a good business to do a loan with this guy. That's how it works. So if the banks say no one was defrauded, then no one was defrauded because the banks would be the victim, not the state. See, our Constitution, the founding of this country, was on the idea that we have all rights given to us by God except the rights that are not given to us. And we determine the rights we don't have based on the actions and the consequence thereafter. So, for example, we can't go kill someone else because we would be violating their right to life. So we don't have the right to go kill someone. It is through God's intelligent design and through his commandments and his law that we determine we don't have certain rights. So take that into a business world. Two parties doing business have extreme jurisdiction to do as much as they want until they hurt each other. If two parties are saying, I didn't hurt that guy, and the other guy saying, I didn't get hurt by that guy, then who got hurt? And why should the state come in and settle a dispute that doesn't exist? That's the problem with this case. So here's the news, and here are some critical things. Look at what New York Governor Kathy Hochul said about the situation. She assures real estate developers that they won't be targeted for real estate valuations like Trump. She just admitted it was a purely partisan political persecution of Donald Trump. She tells New York businesses not to fear about Trump's verdict, nothing to worry about. So I don't know if she understands what she's saying here or if her team caught it. She's basically admitting that this whole thing of going after Donald Trump is purely for political reasons. She's saying, look, we won't go after you. You're not Donald Trump. Even if you did the same things, you're not Donald Trump. Don't worry. You're not Donald Trump. Basically proving that the only reason they're going after Trump is because he's Trump and not because he committed a crime. Now, Jonathan Turley, I love this guy. He's a great law mind, great follow on Twitter. You know, this guy should really be Attorney General of the United States, or at the very least work at a very high level at the DOJ. I think he'd be an amazing legal mind overlooking cases, especially civil cases, because he has a really good understanding of constitutional law. I would love to see guys like this, not Bill Barr or some other dorks. No, geeks. Yeah, disgusting. I want to see guys like Jonathan Turley, who are legitimately great law minds working around the Trump team. He's saying, you don't have to feel sorry or even sympathetic for Trump to see. I do feel sorry, man. I feel very sorry. Trump needs reparations. Reparations now. Reparations now. The appeal will test the New York legal system to see if other judges can do what Judge Moron found so difficult to do, set aside their differences about Trump, their feelings about Trump. Yeah, that's the concept about being impartial. In fact, if you feel as though you may not be impartial because of your personal feelings, typically judges would recuse themselves and the case would be assigned to another judge. If you felt like, oh, I know this guy and I feel a certain hatred or a certain love, I need to recuse myself. You know, conservative judges do that. Liberal judges don't. So I think that's going to be a big factor in the appeal. The fact that Engoron was already in a position where, by the way, this guy lost on appeal. The New York higher courts already agreed this case wasn't a case. When Trump's team went into the appeals, they agreed, but Arthur Engoron, moron, did it anyways. See, that's how messed up it is. Even the liberal higher courts in New York agreed with Trump to a certain degree. You know, at least the degree wasn't far enough because they still let Engoron hold this trial. I think they might have thought, well, he wasn't going to rule against Trump. They might have really thought that. It's actually a disgusting thing to happen to our legal system, that judges like Engoron can do things like that, despite the fact that the case is so obviously lost on appeal. I think if you're Trump, you should be confident. Christina Bobb, Donald Trump's lawyer, or, you know, he has like 50 billion of them. One of the lawyers that works for Save America, the PAC that fights legal battles for Trump, she was confident. She came on the show and said, you know, I am really confident that this will, I mean, we all knew Engoron, Moron's ruling was going to be what we saw, but it still kind of shocks you when a judge says this guy owes 364 million. It's still shocking. But no, I think we're going to win this case. And when I say win, it's just for optics. I mean, first and foremost, when Trump's appealing, he has to put up like 10% of the amount of money he's supposed to pay. 10% of that. That's like 50 million. He has to put it up like while the appeal is ongoing. You know, it's going to be like an escrow, you know, that kind of thing, where they'll give you the money back or they might not, who knows. And he's going to appeal. And really, this case should go all the way to the Supreme Court, because I think the Supreme Court would be interested in a case like this because, one, it's about a former president, and two, the case deals with the idea that the state can come in and settle disputes that don't exist. This is the problem that the founders saw with the British system. They saw this problem with European governments, with kings, monarchies, and Europe still has these problems. They saw these problems and said, we're going the opposite direction. We are going to recognize that self-governance is the best form of government. First, the individual, then the household, then the community, then the city, then the state, then maybe the federal government in some smaller capacity. So they saw this idea of the state commingling in the business and the affairs of the people as a big problem. And this would be a test for the Supreme Court. If two banks or two parties, one bank and one person, are saying the business they did was legitimate, who's the state to come in and say, no, it's not? It's not like Trump didn't pay the loans. No, he played the system. He played the game. And I'm not even sure he played the game, because if he went ahead and said Mar-a-Lago is worth 300 million, I agree with that assessment. I mean, you see houses that are not as prestigious as Mar-a-Lago go for that amount. everywhere in the country. Mar-a-Lago is in prime West Palm Beach, Florida. That increases its value by definitely a few hundred more. Just the land itself is worth a lot because it's a prestigious property. I don't know how many acres it is, but it is big. There's a golf course, so it's not small. Presidents in the world leaders have visited Mar-a-Lago. It's basically the second White House at this point because the amount of politics that takes place there. And also, don't forget, it's a house, it's a residence, but it's also like a hotel. It has members. The hotel, the resort has paid members, and they bring in tens of millions of dollars every year. So what kind of business, what kind of residence gives you the opportunity of profit? Really, if you think about it, Trump could be paying his mortgage based on how much he paid for Mar-a-Lago. If he had a long mortgage, he would be paying for that every year with just the revenue from the members. So it's a business. It's a profitable one. That's the point. I mean, people forget Trump paid like $5 million. What did he pay for Mar-a-Lago? Yeah, the art of the deal. It's like a small amount of money for Mar-a-Lago, and it generates tens of millions every year. That's a very profitable business. It's also just a residence. So please explain to me how I'm not supposed to believe this is a $350 or even $500 million house. If you put that house up on the market for auction, the highest bids are going to be insane. You're going to be surprised who wants to buy it. Even the woke liberals would be like, man, let me buy some Mar-a-Lago. I'm sure Jeff Bezos would love Mar-a-Lago. That's the point. It's prestigious. Rich people like knowing that other people know what they have. And Mar-a-Lago is just a name with so much prestige and value. Man, New York, man, you guys got to get it together. God bless and goodbye.
So what do you think of that? Holy moly. He unpacked so much out of that. Very good. You got to go check out Firebrand Media. You'll start understanding a lot more. And if you open your eyes and your ears, you'll hear and you'll see. There's more than one narrative that's going on out there. This is just crazy. Simple business transactions that the majority Americans have no clue, and it's turned around. I mean, you got truckers mad saying they're boycotting. I mean, sit back, folks. This is just the beginning. 2024 election. Again, the beginning of the most insane things that are going to come out of this. I hope you are watching and listening, and especially learning. And I advise everybody to dig further into this and gather your own opinions, because that's how it works. We don't need other people telling us how to think. That's what this world is. Social media, TikTok, it's all out there. Do as we say. Now, to change gears a little bit, I am going to go to the conservative twins. This was just kind of nuts. Tucker Carlson, as you all know, did an interview with Putin, and the flack that he got over that compared to the history of, I guess, reporters dealing with Putin. It's just so lopsided. It's crazy. Go out there, look the stuff up. It's amazing. Anyway, I believe that with all this going on with the Ukraine and then the sanctions against the Soviet Union, or Russia, excuse me, apparently my idea was that the poor citizens over there waited in lines for bread, and they had to go to multiple different stores for their food, and it was so expensive, and everybody was just drinking vodka. I mean, that's the only thing that they were given. Seriously, narrow-minded American and how I was brought up. And really. So when Tucker Carlson, I guess, went over there and interviewed Putin, he also went to a grocery store and was basically getting groceries like any American would, and it's eye-opening. I mean, really, Russian citizens are just like us. They have supermarkets, they have food, and apparently they have better food because we don't have all that crap that the FDA makes our food so special, which the rest of the world won't eat. Go look into that too. I'm telling you, our food it's bad. We were being attacked 360 degrees, all angles, all the time. Seriously, I'm flabbergasted. I don't even know what to say. But anyway, so back to the conservative twins. We'll add a little humor to this. But Tucker Carlson exposes the cost of food versus the U.S. Again, what we are told about other countries and what actually goes on is it's pretty much just like here. You know, people work to get food, to live, and just enjoy life at what we are allowed to. But boy, they're telling us all sorts of crazy stuff out there. Anyway, so have a listen. Conservative twins. Tucker exposes the cost of food versus the U.S. Again, it's our politicians. It's crumbling. I am able to see what they are doing to us because there's no way that our food should be double the cost and worse for you than food over in Russia. And not saying that Russia's, deserve that. They're a country at war, a proxy war with us over the Ukraine, and they have sanctions and penalties against them. They have better food and better prices. They're energy independent, you'll find out. I mean, that is, seriously, folks, the U.S., our leaders, our government has to do some change because the American people are way better than this. Way, way better. Have a listen.
Yeah. Got a new show for y'all. Got a damn good show. Tucker Carlson, he out there in Russia and he's doing him some shopping. Yeah. Doing him some journalism too. Yeah. Showing the differences.
That's the best journalist. That's probably the only existing journalist we have in America because every journalist in America, for the most part, especially on the left, has an agenda or they want to skew or they have a narrative they want to push instead of being objective and impartial.
Yeah. So he's out there in Russia shopping, showing the difference between America when you go out and shop and Russia.
And I heard some horror stories. There's nothing to select from. The food's crappy.
Mm-hmm. I used to think Russia was very poor, and all these sanctions that we was putting on them here in America, it was just destroying their economy and stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And that's actually all that was propaganda being fed to us by
our own government.
Yeah.
You know what? The government lies a lot.
You know how I felt about that damn moon landing.
Man, ain't nowhere in here we land on the moon.
1960, you got walkie-talkies calling back to Earth.
They got cell phones.
No, they actually had cell phones when they did that, huh?
Yeah. And they had cameras.
Yeah.
They took cameras with
it was out there with a damn camera. Look, and it was coming back in real time to America. Shit was live. All right, let's go to the...
That's kind of impossible.
That's one hell of a production.
Yeah.
Then a white dude hopping on Earth. I mean, on the moon, hopping. I would be hopping on the moon. It's my first time. I'm scared of going. Just blow away.
You know the majority of that footage was lost, right?
Yeah.
Wonder why.
Hey, let's go to Tucker.
Yeah, let's go to Tucker.
Let's go to Tucker. Then started his own network.
Man, that white man, that's a great white man.
If you take people's standard of living and you tank it through filth and crime and inflation, and they literally can't buy the groceries they want, at that point, maybe it matters less what you say or whether you're a good person or a bad person. You're wrecking people's lives in their country, and that's what our leaders have done to us. And coming to a Russian grocery store, the heart of evil, and seeing what things cost and how people live, it will radicalize you against our leaders. That's how I feel anyway, radicalized. We're not making any of this up, by the way, at all. Grocery store. So we're gonna try and buy what a family of four would buy every week, and we're gonna see what the selection is, and we're gonna see what it costs. Now, Russia is famous for its bread, which is one thing I can assess pretty well. The low-carb lifestyle has not swept Russia. Thank heaven, because look at that. It's fresh, too. Look at that. Oh, come on. Unicorn and mini mills.
Hey, dude, make me hungry. Cereal. Unicorn cereal.
Gotta get some cookies.
Some kind of Russian wheat cookies. Ooh, we need coffee, don't we? Yeah. I don't know if this is sugar or flour, to be honest with you, but...
Probably cocaine.
It looks like a staple, so we should get it. It's a very good-looking package. It's got to be flour, right? And this is Russian wine. It's from Crimea, which not only has the warm water naval base, but also is the source of most of the grapes in this part of Russia for wine. So it's apparently pretty good. So we were guessing what this would cost. Everybody here from the United States buys groceries, and we didn't pay any attention to costs as we were just putting in the cart what we would actually eat over a week. And we all came in around $400, about $400. It was $104 US here. Wow. And that's when you start to realize that ideology maybe doesn't matter as much as you thought, corruption. If you take people's standard of living and you tank it through filth and crime and inflation, and they literally can't buy the groceries they want, at that point, maybe it matters less what you say or whether you're a good person or a bad person. You're wrecking people's lives in their country, and that's what our leaders have done to us. And coming to a Russian grocery store, the heart of evil, and seeing what things cost and how people live, it will radicalize you against our leaders. That's how I feel anyway, radicalized. We're not making any of this up, by the way, at all.
Yeah, he's got to say that because nobody believes him. Well, we believe him, but
liberals ain't.
They ain't gonna believe him.
That's crazy, man.
They think he's actually out there because he's buddy with Putin. Yeah, and he's
going to fix the election.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what's crazy? The inflation here in America. Liberals say, "Oh, it's not Biden's fault; it's Trump's fault." Oh, people that voted for Trump. Oh, it's Biden's fault; it's not Trump's fault. Everybody has a hand in. I say it's the liberals doing the majority of the overspending, but Republicans got their hand in it too.
Well, Trump was trying to do something to lower our gas prices, and then Biden came in day one and just wrecked it with the pipeline.
Right,
destroyed it.
Right.
Killed all those jobs that was associated with it. We should be energy independent. Like I was thinking Russia's like flat broke. They're energy independent.
Yeah, we're not. They don't have to deal with mass shootings and none of that.
Well, they probably ain't got no rights to own a gun.
They don't have rights to a gun.
So what are you saying?
Maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger was right. Screw your freedom.
The Tucker Carlson shopping sequence is definitely more visual. It looked like a normal American supermarket with rows and rows of food in the aisles, like we normally see. And not to change the subject, but have you noticed that most of your supermarkets, there's less things in there? There's more shelf space? That's usually a cardinal rule that in the supermarkets, every shelf must be full. They're losing valuable real estate there. But seriously, they're losing money. They don't make a dime unless something sells. So capitalism, something's weird is going on with the supply and demand. And then, of course, all these food recalls. I'm telling you. People, keep your eyes open, head on a swivel. And with that, keep looking for that elusive truth. And we love you. Keep them high vibrations up. Larry will be with us hopefully next week once he gets a minute from driving. That guy's all over the place. And he has a lot to say, too. A lot more crazy stuff. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, with that, have a great week. We will see you soon. Take care. And again, thank you for listening. Bye-bye.